Avram Avinu was tested 10 times. That's what the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos tells us. According to most commentaries, the 10th and final, most difficult test was when Hashem asked him to take his son and sacrifice him on an altar. However, some of the commentaries say that the 10th and final test did not take place until this week's Parsha. Sarah had passed away, and Avram wanted to bury her in Ma'aras HaMachpelah, the cave where Noach and his wife was buried, and the cave where Adam and Chava were buried. So he goes to a man named Ephron, and he says to Ephron, "Can I buy the Ma'aras HaMachpelah from you?" And first he offered it to him for free in a display of graciousness, but really he was not being so gracious and ended up selling it to Avram for an exorbitant fee. And Avram took everything with a smile. Avram dealt with Ephron and bought the place that he needed to buy. He didn't complain that he has to deal with this swindler. He took everything in stride. So that was the 10th test, how he's going to handle dealing with Ephron. And as difficult and annoying as that might have been, it is hard to understand how that was the 10th and most difficult of all the tests, even more difficult than having to sacrifice his own son. Rav Matisyahu Solomon says something beautiful. He says that sometimes the hardest tests in life are the tests that we don't realize are tests. When we realize we're being tested, when we realize we're faced with a big decision, what are we going to do? Who are we going to marry? How are we going to live our lives? Are we going to follow in the ways of Hashem or not? When we have those big, monumental decisions that we have to make, when we know our faith is being tested in a very, very strong way, then sometimes it's easier to psych ourselves up and say, I know Hashem is testing me. How could I overcome this test? I'm going to overcome this test. But when you have to deal with the day-to-day annoyances of life, you don't always realize that those are also from Hashem. Every time you get stuck in traffic, every time you slip and fall, every time you lost money, if you have to deal with an annoying boss or an annoying friend or even an annoying spouse, not that I would know about that. Sometimes those challenges are even more difficult because we don't look at that and say, wow, that's a test from Hashem and I have to overcome it. Those we look at just the annoyances of life. But every single thing that happens to us, every annoyance, every challenge, every struggle is all from Hashem. The 10th and final test of Avram Avinu was to realize that not only are those monumental challenges from Hashem, even the regular annoyances of day-to-day life, having to deal with an annoying person in order to buy a burial place from his wife, that too is from Hashem. And that's something that we have to realize as well. Everything that happens in our lives is from Hashem. You know, a couple months ago, we all started dealing with the challenges of COVID. And I think at that time we realized that this is from Hashem. We have to be careful. We have to strengthen ourselves. We have to daven the way we should, even if we're not davening in shul. We have to try to learn the way we should, even if we're not learning together as a group. But as the months goes on, and this almost has turned into somewhat of a new norm, as they say, sometimes we let our guard down and we say that this is no longer from Hashem, or this is just the annoyances of everyday's life. And we no longer psych ourselves up to realize that every challenge that comes from COVID or from anything is all from Hashem. Hashem is testing us. And He's testing us because He wants to show us how much we could accomplish. But we have to remember that every annoyance, every challenge is all from Hashem. So let's embrace the big challenges in our life, the big tests in our life, and overcome those. But let's also remember the smaller challenges in life, the daily annoyances that we have in our life, so to speak. Those are also from Hashem. Hashem is testing us. Hashem wants to see how are we going to handle those situations. Let's overcome those challenges as well. Let's overcome those challenges. Let's grow from those challenges. And let's try to make ourselves better people each and every day. Have a great Shabbos.